Hey guys, this is Imdad from Garage4Hackers with another Ranchoddas webcast on bypassing modern WAFs exemplified in XSS by Rafay Baloch. Before heading on towards the actual presentation, I'd like to give you a brief introduction about Garage4Hackers. We are one of the oldest information security community for InfoSec enthusiasts and aspirants on the internet. We started off as an awkward community hackers garage back in the year 2007, and today we have more than 6,000 members sharing knowledge across various fields of InfoSec. Our mission is to spread InfoSec education for free to the masses. In our forum, you will often find us connecting newbies, security researchers, experts, and evangelists. Our members in our community are highly interactive, easily approachable, and they ensure helping other InfoSec aspirants by providing them with viable resources as well as spreading best security practices and promoting research-based activities. In our forum, we discuss on wide range of InfoSec topics, which includes vulnerability assessment and penetration testing of web application, mobile application, wireless and Bluetooth hacking, computer forensics and incident handling, physical security and social engineering, cloud security, and sometimes our members talk about their meanest hack, their exploitation techniques, reverse engineering, and much more. Let me put some light into some of our achievements. Today, we are a family of more than 6,000 members with 8,000 posts and 32,000 unique visitors in our forum. Our webcast is being watched by more than 20,000 viewers on our YouTube channel from viewers across 20 countries. Our co-members had reported more than 40 best bug bounties to Google, Facebook, Yahoo, and so on. In addition to that, we had also reported more than 30 bugs in browsers such as Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox, and Safari. We do information security research on unique areas such as biometric system, physical locks, cable TV networks, data cards, drones, as well as threat detection using machine learning. We truly believe in the open source culture, and some of our core members had contributed towards the open source community. These are some of our open source projects. Shiva is a spam honeypot which provides the capability of collecting and analyzing all the spams thrown at it. It does the analysis of captured data which can be used to get information on phishing attacks, scamming campaigns, malware campaigns, as well as spam botnets. Sandy is basically a static and dynamic exploit analysis framework. Lisa is an LLDB debugger plugin for Mac. Dtex is an open Linux sandbox which on executing various ELF binaries will capture the network traffic generated by it. Post execution of binary, Dtex will generate a brief report which contains information about network connections, file type, strings, DNS, as well as the URLs requested by the binary. Currently it supports x86 32-bit, 64-bit, MIPS and ARM-based CPU architecture. In our garage, we build and release our own tools and scripts for various techniques and vulnerability exploitation. And also, we have contributed to various web application CTF across the world. People attend conferences across the world to learn different bypass techniques, but in our forum, we discuss those techniques before it is presented in the conference, like the ASLR bypass technique which was presented at CanSec West. It was already discussed and shared on forum by our core member Vinu. So these are some of our achievements. Apart from this, we also had raised donations for some of the relief campaigns. In September 2014, Kashmir was hit by a severe flood which took the life of more than 200 people. There was huge damage done to the state. So at this critical situation, we raised 1 lakh from our members. Later, this money was used to buy medicines, blankets, foods, and other emergency amenities. One of our garage member, Rashid Bhatt, had gone to Kashmir with this aids and distributed to the needy. at that time, we also started a new challenge for the hackers community, wherein the hacker would participate in a bug bounty program and donate that money to this campaign. We got an overwhelming response from the community. Again, in the year 2015, Chennai received a heavy rainfall over a huge period of time. As you can see in the picture, the entire city was completely flooded, leaving thousands of residents homeless, and some were fleeing out of the city. A lot of people had lost their means of livelihood. Again, we thought of helping them, and we were able to collect some relief fund. Our member eBay and Amol personally went to Chennai to deliver these relief materials. We also had helped Children's of Hope Foundation in getting their education. Hope Foundation works to bring about change in the lives of children and young people. They work to educate children and provide them with good health care, and they also train them. We collected some funds within our members and then we donated it for their education. These are the pictures taken at that time. Let me talk about some of our initiatives. Garage4Hackers Ranchoddas series is dedicated to bringing together the best in InfoSec research and enthusiasts. If you have seen our previous webcast, it would include high-level industry speakers and researchers speaking on the latest InfoSec topics. It's absolutely free and open for everyone. Our aim is to make knowledge free to use, reuse, or redistribute without any restriction. So now you might be wondering why the name Ranchoddas. The idea was conceived out of an inspiration from a Bollywood character Ranchoddas Shamaldas Chanchar from the movie Three Idiot. Amir Khan was the actor playing Rancho in this movie. Rancho's simpleness to learning, his enthusiasm with machines, ability to help others learn and bring a positive influence on people around him. These qualities of him inspired us. We'll begin the webcast in a short while. Before that, let me brief you about the webcast. In this webcast, Rafay will be talking about bypassing modern WAFs, exemplified at XSS. Rafay has been conducting security research over 6 years. He is currently working as a manager of information security for Pakistan Telecommunication Company Limited. His core area of research includes bypassing client server-side protection such as WAF and other security mechanisms. He is also an author of Ethical Hacking and Penetration Testing Guide. He is an active participant in bug bounty programs. So Rafay will give you an overview of WAFs as well as its operational model. He will talk about automated fingerprinting as well as various bypassing methodology. So by now, you might be wondering, why should I watch it? Or why should I invest my time into this? So let me explain you how will you be benefited productively by this webcast. Since more than 70% of our registered members will be watching it for the first time, we plan to start at a very beginner level so that it is easy to understand. You just need to listen it with an open mind and have some basic understanding of JavaScript as well as XSS. The webcast will be followed by Capture the Flag challenge. I will talk about it later. I would suggest you to listen to Rafay keenly and make notes of all the rules which will help you in the CTF challenge. You can easily win the challenge if you have thoroughly listened to him and have understood the techniques. We have lots of live demonstration on bypassing WAFs in real world scenarios. So now I will hand over it to Rafay. I'll be back in some time. I hope you guys enjoy the video.
Alright, welcome everyone. Thank you all for being a part of this presentation, and thank you, a great thanks to Garage4Hackers team for inviting me to conduct this webcast. So the topic of today is bypassing modern web application firewalls, exemplified at cross-site scripting. My name is Rafay Baloch, and I would be discussing about different techniques that you can simply use in order to bypass modern day web application firewalls. However, before getting started, I would like to highlight the fact that when I was deciding the topic of this webcast, I thought that maybe I should go with same origin policy bypass stuff, due to the fact that this is something that I have been recently researching on. However, later I realized the fact that this is not something, this may be pretty interesting. However, this is not something that bug bounty hunters and pen testers can use right after attending this webcast in their penetration test and their day-to-day engagements. So I thought maybe I should come up with this topic of bypassing web application firewalls. I mean, due to the fact that I have had a great success rate at bypassing firewalls, and this is something that you can immediately use in your pen test after attending this webcast. So the agenda for today, we'd start by talking about what a WAF really is, its primary operational models. We'd then discuss about manually fingerprinting web application firewall, and then we would discuss about some of the tools in the trade that you can use to fingerprint a web application firewall. We would then discuss about WAF bypass methodologies that you can use in order to bypass a web application firewall. We would then talk about bypassing keyword-based filters, entity decoding, and then I would show you how you can bypass a real-world cross-site scripting filter, a firewall that I encountered once upon a time, and I have basically created a simulated environment for it. So the techniques that we will learn in this presentation, we will apply those techniques to a real world web application firewall, so that you know how things really work. And then we would close up with some comments and takeaways, right? So it is necessary and rather mandatory for me to set expectations right for the participants of this webinar. So the author pre-assumes the fact that the reader has or the viewer has some basic knowledge of JavaScript and cross-site scripting. Due to the fact that XSS is a separate topic, and there is no point in talking about WAF bypasses when you are not aware about what cross-site scripting really is. And again, this is not a WAF 101 talk. We will not be covering all the aspects of a WAF bypass due to the fact that it would be then subject of an entire course, right, rather than a subject of a webinar. We will not be disclosing 0 days. However, we will certainly teach you how to find one. And I'm pretty confident that after attending this webcast, you will go into the wild and bring up some 0 days for yourself, right? So give a man 0 day and he will hack for a day. Teach a man how to find a 0 day and he will hack for a lifetime. And this is something that I tweeted a few days back, inspired from a famous Chinese quote that give a man a fish and you feed him for 1 day, and teach someone how to fish and you will feed him for his entire life, right? So layers of insecurities. In 1970s, we were at a point where we had all the attacks on layer 1, right, physical layer of the OSI model. And as time has passed by, we have seen an upward progression in layer of insecurities. So right now we are at a point that where all the attacks revolve around the application layer of the OSI model, right? So of course it makes sense to talk about web application firewall, since WAFs are not primary, but they are used as secondary protections. And of course there are websites that are using it as a primary protections, as a primary protection, due to the fact that we are not aware of secure coding practices and input validation, so on and so forth. So what a WAF exactly is, there are multiple definitions available on the internet. However, this is how I can summarize what a WAF really is. So a WAF can be a piece of hardware and a software that sits between the client, the web browser, and a web application in order to determine or detect or block malicious requests, right, before they are sent to the web application. So a WAF basically operates in two different modes. We have a passive mode and we have a reactive mode. In a passive mode, a WAF does not go and block an attack if he sees one. However, it will simply alert the administrator, and it would simply act as an IDS, right? However, in reactive mode, a web application goes and blocks a malicious request, and it may also block the sender of the malicious request based upon its IP address and other other headers such as cookies. So clearly, configuring a WAF in a reactive mode is a more suitable approach. However, due to the fact that WAFs are not aware of the context and the business logic of the application, so placing a WAF with default signature sets, placing an application behind a WAF with default signature sets may break your applications. So hence it is recommended for administrators to first keep a WAF into a passive mode, and then after they have tuned the signatures, to bring it into a reactive mode or blocking mode. WAF primary operational models. We have 3 different models on which a WAF particularly operates. So we have a positive model, we have a negative model, and we have a hybrid approach, which is a combination of first 2 models. So what a whitelist is accepting known goods. So you define a set of inputs that are allowed to access your application. So rest everything else would be blocked, as it would not fall into your whitelist. So what you're essentially doing is accepting what is known good, right, and rejecting everything else. A blacklist is exact opposite of a whitelist, and this is where you predefine a list of all the inputs that should be blocked, that should not be allowed, and rest everything else should be allowed. And then we have a mixed model, which is actually a combination of whitelist and a blacklist. So clearly configuring a WAF into a whitelist mode is one of the most effective approaches, right? So whitelisting is better than blacklisting, and this is where all the security community agrees, right? However, the security community also knows the fact that due to the dynamic nature of applications, it is simply not possible for someone to predict all the possible inputs and hence form an effective whitelist that is free of false negatives, right? And which brings us to whitelist, which brings us to blacklist, and this is where 99% of the web application firewalls operate. They operate on blacklist, right? And blacklists are normally in form of complex regular expressions, which are used for pattern matching purposes. So so the secret is that almost all WAFs can be bypassed, due to the fact that all of the WAFs, almost all of the WAFs are based upon blacklisting. This means that this means that all WAFs can be simply bypassed, as anything that had relied in past on blacklist, and the history has proven the fact that they have been bypassed. Fingerprinting a web application firewall. So before getting into the core of the presentation, and before attacking web application firewall rules itself, it is mandatory to know what you're up against, whether you're up against Smart Security, whether you're up against Imperva. And this allows you to search for known exploits, and you can simply save your time simply by fingerprinting WAF. So if I know that now I'm up against Imperva, and there is a public bypass for it, so instead of wasting time and reinventing the wheel, I'll just take up that public bypass and use it against the application. And this reminds me of a quote by Sun Tzu. He said that if you don't know your enemy and you don't know your capabilities, you will face a defeat in every single battle. So if we interpret this in the context of web application firewalls, if you don't know what WAF you're up against, if you don't know what it's blocking and what it's not blocking, and if you don't know your capabilities, right, so you will not be able to bypass a single application firewall. And this brings to this quote that if you know the enemy and if you know yourself, and this is also said by Sun Tzu, you need not to fear the result of 100 battles. So if you know your capabilities, and if you know what WAF you're up against, if you know what a WAF is blocking, what WAF is not blocking, it's a matter of time that you would be able to come up with a suitable bypass. And there are multiple WAF fingerprinting techniques. We have cookie values, we have HTTP response codes, we have connection close, and we have server cloaking. Let's first examine what these techniques are and how they look in real world. So this is Citrix Netscaler, a very popular web application firewall. So there are a lot of firewalls that simply add their own cookies to HTTP communication. So ns_af Netscaler is the cookie that Netscaler adds to the communication in order to keep track of the request. And anytime if we encounter an application that is sending these cookies starting with ns_af, we know that we are now up against Netscaler, right? F5 Big IP ASM is also an example where cookie values discloses that the fact that there is a web application firewall. So any where we have F5 Big IP ASM, the cookie value would start from TS, followed by any character between A to Z, and followed and a number between 0 to 9. So this is based upon regular expression that it uses. Then there are different firewalls which, when encounter a malicious request, it would send up a custom HTTP response code. So in case of Webknight, so this is the official website of a Webknight, a popular firewall for IIA servers. When it encounters a malicious request, so this is a cross-site scripting payload. So when it encountered a malicious request, it has simply displayed that it is up against, it is behind Webknight application firewall alert. So while they are marketing themselves, they are forgetting the fact that they are revealing their identity. They are revealing the fact that the application is behind this firewall. Defender firewall, it also when an application behind a Defender firewall encounters a malicious request, this is how the page would look like. It would rewrite the HTTP response, or perhaps redirect to this page. Wafwoof is a very famous and one of the first automated frameworks for detecting application firewall. It is coded in Python, and it's fairly easy to understand if you go through the code. It is and I would recommend you that instead of using automated techniques, you should also, apart from using automated techniques, you should also understand the fact that how these techniques really work. And this is really what separates a normal pen tester versus a skilled pen tester. That a skilled pen tester and a hacker really knows what he's up against, right? And he knows how a particular technique works, knows how a particular tool works. So this is a website, popix.com.br, and we just do Wafwoof followed by the URL that we wish to test, and based upon the same check, based upon the cookie check, it has figured out that it is up against Citrix Netscaler. So what are the techniques that Wafwoof uses? So cookies, we already discussed about cookies. We also discussed about HTTP response codes. This is very interesting. So a lot of WAFs, when they encounter a malicious request, they simply send a fin request or a reset request, which would simply close the connection. And let me show you one possible implementation. So this is an implementation of a drop request by Mod Security. So this is a code that is simply used for keeping track of basic authentication attempts. So if a client with a single IP address makes 25 attempts in 120 seconds, what it would do, it would simply log the attempt and it would send the drop packet. So a drop packet would mean that it would send a fin packet, which would finish up the TCP handshake, three-way handshake. And this is an implementation that you can simply use to neutralize brute force attacks or denial of service attacks. We have server cloaking. There are a lot of web application firewalls that once they receive a malicious request, they use different altering methods, such as they would rewrite your HTTP response, they would rewrite HTTP response headers, so on and so forth. And then we have pre-built rules, which is testing for pre-built negative signatures, which of course may vary from a WAF to WAF. So I don't find this rule pretty amusing, but of course this might work in some circumstances. So how Wafwoof really works? So it is extremely simple. The process is very simple. So what Wafwoof does is, this is XSS string, and this is something script alert one. This is something that would be the first rule for anyone that is creating regular expressions for detecting and blocking cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. So we have these known malicious payloads. This is for directory traversal and HTML, and this is clean HTML string, right? And these are the attack patterns that Wafwoof would send to the application that you are testing. And here is an example of F5 Big IP ASM, and this is how it is detecting. So this is the regular expression that F5 Big IP ASM. So I said that TS followed by any character from A to Z and 0 to 9, and based upon the cookie values, it is matching if it's up against F5 Big IP ASM or not. So if this regular expression matches with the cookies, it would flag that it is basically behind a web application firewall. And this is for Webknight. What it's detecting after sending a malicious request, it would detect if the response.status is 999, which is the default response for Webknight once it has encountered a malicious request. We have http-waf fingerprinting script, which is also based upon the techniques that we have previously discussed. However, the reason why I find it pretty good is due to the fact that Wafwoof is not capable of efficiently determining if an application is behind an imperva. So in case of imperva, I use this http-waf fingerprint script. So this is the core of this presentation, and we have finally built up the base for understanding different WAF bypass methodologies. We have brute forcing, and this is my own methodology. So we have brute forcing, which is how most of the scanners normally work. So what the scanners do is they do not understand the context of the application, of course. So what they do is they throw up random payloads and hoping for one to execute, and then use regular expressions in order to check if something has executed or not. And of course by doing regular expression, there is no surefire way of knowing if a payload has really executed into the DOM or not. Then we have regular expression reversing. I have highlighted this in red due to the fact that this is one of the most important methodology when it comes to bypassing web application firewalls. And this is where we take a note of what our application firewall is allowing, and what a web application firewall is blocking in order to construct a bypass. And we have browser-based bugs and utilizing known and unknown browser bugs in order to construct a bypass. We'll get to this later in this presentation. So let's start with brute forcing. Again, brute forcing is where we basically send tons of different payloads without really knowing what a WAF is blocking or not blocking. It is also known as a blind kind of injection, where we are sending tons of different payloads and hoping for one of them to execute. So I will be releasing the slides right after this talk, so you can feel free to use these payloads that I have collected. This is my personal list of payloads that I use for conducting brute forcing. And again, this might work up against firewalls with weak signatures, but this is not recommended against firewalls that really know what they are doing, right? So these are the payloads that some of them I have collected from different challenges from the community, from different experts, and some of them I have constructed on my own. So regular expression reversing, and I think this happens to be one of the most important in the core of this presentation. So it is perhaps the best way for bypassing any web application firewall, and trust me, I have had 98 and rather 99% of success with almost all application firewalls when I attempt to use this technique. And as I mentioned before, that web application rules are mostly made up of complex regular expressions. So in regular expression, we identify all the possible variations of malicious input that WAF is blocking. Hence we know that what it's not blocking, and based upon that we can construct a bypass. So I have constructed 10 different rules for reversing regular expressions, and again, there are many other rules that I've skipped due to time constraint. However, I think these 10 rules are sufficient in order to reverse engineer the rules of most of the application firewalls. So you are up against a application firewall. So what would be the first payload that you would send? So a lot of people would send a script alert, and what I would send is harmless HTML. So B tag, I tag, and U tag, which are known as harmless HTML tags. So, and in order to find that whether open bracket and closing brackets are blocked by firewall, or whether it is stripping something in between the tag, or if it's blocking a B tag or I tag. This is to know if we would be able to inject opening and closing brackets, because if we are not able to inject these brackets, we would then move to a different context, such as script context. Rule 2, we will inject HTML entities. So we will inject these HTML entities. These are equivalent for opening and closing brackets. So we have HTML entities, and then Unicode and hexadecimal and hex, in order to check if web application firewall is decoding some of the entities or not. So, and I have a very good example of a WAF that a filter that was decoding entities, and we used the fact to bypass the web application firewall. Rule 3 is injecting script tag. So script tag is not really recommended, and I don't think you would be able to get bypasses with script tags, due to the fact that this is one of the first rules that someone implements. However, I have good variations that I have used in past in order to bypass different firewalls. So we would inject script tags and its variation. So this is combination of uppercase and a lowercase, to check if a filter is only blocking a lowercase character or it's blocking both uppercase and lowercase. These are very simple payloads, and these are ECMAScript 6 based XSS vectors, and we can use the HTML entity. So this is equivalent to the accent grave, and this allows us to execute JavaScript without happening to use parentheses, dictatorial grave, or accent grave, and this is its HTML entity equivalent. And then injecting a new line, there are some filters that would use the dot operator to match all the possible inputs, anything followed by script. However, the new line do not come, dot operator matches everything apart from new line, so we can inject a new line sometimes in order to achieve a bypass. Testing for recursive filters, and there are a lot of filters that would simply be stripping malicious characters. So in case if we are injecting the following into the web application, and if it leads to alert 1, this means that script tags are simply being stripped and they are being replaced with white spaces. So in that case, we can use the following payload. So what we are effectively doing is that we are hoping for the web application firewall to strip these characters into red, because they are triggered as malicious characters, and WAF is replacing it with white space characters. So it would strip these characters, and hence this would lead to script alert 1, and this would execute. So this is something that you should test. Rule number 5, injecting anchor tag, and this is where I normally find most of the bypasses. So we will we'll start by injecting a normal anchor tag, which is simply pointing, where href attribute is simply pointing to google.com, and we'll check what WAF is blocking. Is it blocking the A tag? If is A tag being completely stripped, or href, it's blocking href attribute, because or it's blocking href followed by an equal to sign. So we'll have to take a note of all these things before getting to the next test case. So once we know what WAF is blocking, then we would once we have the result from this slide, we would then slowly start injecting the JavaScript. So first we will inject JavaScript followed by a colon to see if the JavaScript keyword is being stripped, or they are using regular expression to check if JavaScript keyword is followed by the colon character, right? This is combination of lowercase and uppercase. So we would check if alert is being stripped, or if parentheses are being stripped here, right? So, and in anchor tag, especially in href attribute and other similar attributes, we have flexibility to inject HTML entities, to inject Unicode characters, so on and so forth, and the browsers would decode it on runtime. So this is where we are using the HTML entities tab, ampersand tab, followed by a semicolon, and then we are this confirm, because alert is most probably blocked by many XSS filters, and followed by lpar, which is the HTML entity equivalent for parenthesis, left parenthesis, and this is right parenthesis, right? And this is where we are injecting other characters, HTML entities such as new line. So this is all completely valid in context of where an input is being reflected in href attribute, or perhaps you are able to inject the href attribute and you are not able to inject the JavaScript keyword, right? And then this is actually combination of multiple tricks. So we have a new line, HTML entities, we have an ampersand tab, and followed by ampersand colon, which is a representation of where which is an alternate representation of colon, its HTML entity equivalent, followed by Unicode, and then followed by HTML entities again. So, and this is also a good vector that you can utilize where you are simply using percentage encoding in order to bypass, and of course this also would be decoded at the runtime. So once you are done testing, so in case WAF is blocking everything up till rule 5, we will begin with rule 6. So we will then, so let's suppose you're not able to somehow inject anything over here, so we will try by injecting an invalid event handler. So as per HTML, as per specs, all event handlers must begin with this on keyword. So what we are injecting here is on climb tree, which is not a valid event handler, to check if if the filter is configured in a way to block anything followed by on characters, and we will take a look at how this works. So if we are able to inject this means that the WAF is not bypass, WAF is not blocking event handlers, and rather it is blocking some specific event handlers such as on mouse over or on focus, so on and so forth. So there are like more than 150 event handlers that you can use in order to execute JavaScript. Now in case if we are not able to inject this, in case if on climb tree, if it strips anything that comes after on followed by equal to sign, we have another way of bypassing it by using Unicode separators that we would get into once we have reached the browser bug session, right? So once we know that the application is not blocking all event handlers, rather it is blocking some event handlers, we can use less common event handlers like on cut, on hash change, and on drag, and this was one of the bypasses that I found for real world web application firewall. This would execute once the user has dragged the hello keyword, and again on drag equals to, and this is the Unicode equivalent of n confirm, and this is Unicode equivalent of m, and again of course we can try evading this parentheses, because parentheses are something that are normally blocked most of the times, right? So in case if rule 7 has failed, rule 6 has failed, we would then inject scripts with src attributes. So src attributes, mostly image tags and video tags are mostly whitelisted by application. So I mean you can use this to execute JavaScript. So this was a bypass for more security once upon a time. However, now more security tools have dynamically improved, and so is their ability to produce false positives, right? So we have to take a note of the fact if a WAF is blocking src attribute, or if it's blocking on our event handler, or if it's blocking the video attribute or audio attribute iframe. So you have to take a note at it, so in order to reverse engineer the wrapper expression, right? We have other different attributes. We have this form action JavaScript alert one, and this was if I remember correctly, this was one of the bypasses for Usher Javed's filter found by Mario Hadrick, and I think it was also Gareth Hayes that found this. And action attributes are not commonly kept into blacklist because I don't know, but because of maybe lack of awareness of someone that is developing a WAF rule. So it is necessary to, and there are many ways, many tags that primarily two tags that use action attribute in order to execute JavaScript. We have isIndex, which is not commonly blocked as well, and we have form action attribute that is not commonly blocked as well. So here what we are doing is we are simply using HTML entities in order, and again when something is an action attribute, it will also be decode it at the runtime, and JavaScript would execute. So you can use HTML entities and Unicode. You have a flexibility to switch between those. And this is different. These are different variations. This one is from Mario Hedrick, where he's using data attribute data URI scheme in order to execute JavaScript, followed by HTML entities. GCP Trota, a good friend of mine, he's using event handler, and this was one of the bypasses for DOM Purify from Mario Hedrick. And again, this is a very neat vector that I think would bypass a lot of firewalls, if not many. And rule number 10 is to inject HTML5 based payloads. So there are a lot of web application firewalls such as Webknight that simply live in HTML4 world, and they have not upgraded themselves to protect against payloads based upon HTML5 tags and event handlers that were introduced in HTML5. So there are different ways. We have marquee, we have body select tag, text area, so on and so forth. So you have to take a note again at what WAF is blocking. So it might not be blocking this on focus or autofocus, and it might be blocking this tag. So there are alternate tags that can be used with autofocus and on focus, right? And these are some of exotic XSS vectors, so feel free to use it. This is by Alex, also a good friend of mine, and this was by Hasegawa, I think, where he's using on activate handler, which is also very less common handler. I think it works up till Internet Explorer 9 or so. And this is a very interesting variation of this vector by not a variation, but again Ben Hayek is also effectively using the same event handler that is on activate for executing JavaScript. This is for Internet Explorer 7 to 11 div on focus, a very neat XSS vector. Masato Kinogawa, king of cross-site scripting and WAF bypasses, he's using on scroll event handler, which is also very less common event handler in order to execute JavaScript. And this was something I recently noticed. This was a bypass for no script client-side XSS extension plugin in Firefox, and this is standalone vector, so this would directly execute under JavaScript and other browsers. So on before script execute is also an exotic vector because it is normally not blocked by web application firewalls. So bypassing keyword based filters. So a lot of times you are able to inject HTML tags, however you are not able to, and this is also case has been also case in many XSS challenges, that we are able to inject HTML tags, but again when it comes to popping up an alert or of course demonstrating the vulnerability to a customer, we are not able to make the XSS vector, right? So in that case there are various techniques that can be used in order to bypass it. There are alternative execution things. We have non-alphanumeric JS, which we are not discussing in this webcast. However, I would be releasing a WAF bypass cheat sheet hopefully soon. I am in process of it, and that would talk about all these techniques in great detail. However, for the sake of this webcast, I will precisely talk about it. So character escapes, we have, so we can simply represent alert 1. We can rewrite alert 1 into its Unicode equivalent by using Unicode escape, and this is ECMAScript 6 variation by using accent grave. So we are not using parentheses, so in case if WAF is blocking parentheses, you can use these backtick sign in order to bypass. And other variations for alert one are eval, where we can, once we do eval, we can simply write something into its hexadecimal equivalent, and then it will be decoded onto the runtime. And this is an example of octal escapes when combined with ECMAScript 6, right? So string concatenation, there are many ways that we can concatenate string, primarily two of them, one being basic string concatenation, where we are using double quotes, and we are separating the input by separating the letters by simply by using the plus sign. And we have the dot source property, which simply returns the string from the regex. So this would return ALE from this regex, and this would return RT. So when this combine, it would result in alert function, right? And we have different methods, ATOB and BTOA. These are functions that are pre-built into browsers, JavaScript functions that are used for encoding and decoding base64. So if we could eval this, then this would simply execute a JavaScript, since base64 would be decoded onto runtime. And then we have string from charcode. This is a function which is responsible for converting a Unicode number into a string, right? And we will take a look at its variations. And then we have alternative execution things. So in case if you are not able to use alert, confirm, eval, we can use set timeout function. And this set timeout function, where we are simply using the basic string concatenation that we talked about here in order to execute JavaScript. And this is where we are using string from charcode function, and we are using set interval execution sync in order to execute it. And this is a variation of string concatenation by using the source property. So a very interesting case of entity decoding. So this was Laravel XSS filter that I was up against, and what was being happened is that when I used to supply this input, and this is decimal entity equivalent of JavaScript confirm, and this is actually not a standalone vector itself, but if we try executing it, we will notice that it would alert us due to the fact that anything under href attribute would be decoded at the runtime, right? Now I sent this in order to obfuscate JavaScript confirm in order to execute JavaScript. But what Laravel XSS filter, which effectively used regular expressions from XSS clean function of CodeIgniter framework, it was decoding the entities, it was decoding this to JavaScript confirm, and then hence it was being matched, right? So what is the way to bypass it? So if we double encode the input, if we perform double encoding, so the idea is that it would the filter would decode it once, right? So the filter has decoded it once. Now since this is not a valid payload, right, and we can try executing this in JSBin, and as you can see that it would not execute, right, because this is not a valid vector, standalone vector. So as we know that the WAF the filter was simply decoding the entity, so we double encoded this HTML entities, and the WAF decoded it once, and since the WAF did not had the filter did not had regular expressions to match this was simply executed, and this was one of the bypasses that I found. So demo time, we would go ahead and utilize the techniques that we have found in order to bypass modern day web application firewall. So this is one of the WAF that I encountered back in 2013, if I can remember correctly, and then I made up a challenge, and you can find a lot of solutions if you take a look at the write-up, and I will be linking to the write-up after the presentation. So this is based upon a real web application firewall, and what we would be doing is that we would be utilizing the regular expression reversing technique in order to fingerprint what a WAF is blocking and what a WAF is not blocking precisely, and in order to execute the JavaScript, right? And it is worth mentioning that there are a lot of techniques that can be used in order to bypass this specific firewall. However, I would be only discussing about few techniques. Right? So let's see if it comes up. Maybe I can try a new browser. Right. So we'll start up the sandbox. So Hackme is hosting my challenge for its viewers, and I will utilize Hackme in order to create a sandbox, and you can do the same if you would like to. So I'm waiting until it's allocating me the sandbox. So here we go. So this is our HAInfosec challenge, and the rule number 1 was to simply try. Okay, let me see if I can open it up in. Yeah, I'm more comfortable with. Firefox. Alright, so I'll input test, and I will view the source code to see if my input is being reflected. So my input is being reflected inside the div tag, inside the HTML context, right? So the next test case would be to execute b tag, which was the rule number 1, right? So if you closely look at the response, you would notice that the closing bracket has been stripped. So we have a finding that WAF is stripping closing bracket, right? We can try its HTML equivalent or Unicode equivalent to see if WAF is decoding any entities. However, as you can see that the HTML entities are also not working. We can also try Unicode entities. Right, so I think I've had internet failure, so we'll wait till the internet is back, and till then let's discuss about something about this challenge. So the goal here is to execute the JavaScript. So I mean, this is a very vague statement to give to execute JavaScript, but what I mean by executing JavaScript is to basically alert one, to display a pop-up alert one, and the payload must render inside any of the modern browsers. So modern browsers, maybe Internet Explorer, starting from Internet Explorer 9, because at that time Internet Explorer 9 was considered as modern browsers. Nowadays, a lot of bug bounty hunting programs are simply not accepting Internet Explorer 9, right? And again, this is a very powerful statement. Your scanners won't help here, and you can still. The challenge was released in 2013. You can try any scanner, let it be IBM AppScan, NetSparker, Acunitix, and I'm certain that though it's a real world, it's based upon real world WAF, the scanners won't be able to bypass it, because scanners are not meant to bypass WAF, right? So it is always good to do manual testing and not to rely on scanners, right? And again, I have set the XSS protection header to 0, which would prevent the client side filter from triggering an alert on malicious XSS vector, because if that in that case where it was set to 1, it would have been extremely hard in order to execute JavaScript, right? So I'm still waiting for my internet connection to go up again, because here in Pakistan we do have some problems with load shedding, but it's always good, right? Okay, so you're back, and we now know that it is also filtering out backslash as well. So we will begin with the next test case. We will start by injecting href attribute, right? Okay, I think I might have to restart the sandbox due to the fact that I have reconnected to my router, and the DHCP has assigned me a new IP address. So that sandbox was accessible with the previous IP address, right? But no worries, I'll start up again. Happens in live demonstrations. It is very common for anyone that has given live demonstrations know that there are issues that we have to tackle, right? But no worries, all is well if it ends well. So a href attribute and as you can see that I'm able to inject anchor tag, however it is stripping href attribute. So we now know that it's stripping href attribute, or maybe we can create a separate list for attributes that WAF is blocking, right? So what was next, right? Since we are not able to execute href attribute, we can try image source x to see if the WAF is allowing it or not, right? So we now know that tags, image tags are also blocked. How about script tags? And I don't bother trying it on a WAF, and of course this is what you get when you try script alert on a real world XSS filter, right? So now we know that image tag, script tag. What about iframe? Iframe we have. So iframe src. So we now know that both iframe tag and src attribute is being blocked by the web application firewall, right? Let's try some event handlers, right? So I will cut this short. I'll go with body on load to see if it works or not. Of course, you can try other payloads such as object embed. You can follow the book. So I'm able to inject onload event handler and the body tag, right? So this seems easy, so I'll do body onload or SVG onload, right? So I mean SVG would also work for sure, since I created this, so I know. So let's see what happens once we try injecting the whole cross-site scripting vector. So we are able to inject SVG onload followed by equal to sign. However, alert keyword is being blocked, right? Alert function, alert. We have alternative methods. So we now know that parentheses are also being blocked based upon this. So we now know that parentheses are also being blocked, right? But that's not a problem, because now we have ECMAScript 6. We can bypass parentheses simply by doing this, right? Simply by using the accent grave. However, the problem here is not only parentheses. We have to also find a way to pop up an alert one on this domain, right? We can also try confirm. Confirm is also being blocked. We can also try prompt function, which is also being blocked for sure, right? So what are other ways of executing or injecting JavaScript? We can do SVG onload location, and we would point the location to JavaScript confirm 1. However, we know that parts of this payload are also being blocked, right? So the location keyword is also being blocked, and so JavaScript alert is JavaScript scheme, and of course we know that alert is also being blocked, right? However, we can set the location to name property name, and since we know that the closing bracket is being blocked, we can use multi-line. However, now we have to find a way to inject location. Now the name property is a name that is given to a window, so we can there are ways we can set the name property. There are ways where we can set the name property to our XSS payload, and since window.name property is an exception to same origin policy, it persists across different domains, which should not happen in case of a same origin policy, but this is how it is. There are ways we can set the name property to JavaScript alert, right? So but right now we have to focus on bypassing this, somehow being able to inject the location keyword. So we can use this constructor, and we can use string concatenation, right? And this should work, right? So we are using this constructor to access the location property, and then we are using basic string concatenation in order to make it execute. And it seems that the plus sign is being stripped, right? And single quotes, and let's try double quotes to see if double quotes are also being stripped or not. So single and double quotes are also being stripped. Single and double quotes are also being stripped. So we now know what WAF is blocking and what WAF is not blocking. So but again, we now need to inject the plus sign in order to concatenate string. So if you play upon further playing with this firewall, you realize that the WAF is decoding some entities. So the WAF was decoding percentage encoding. So percentage 2b is equivalent to plus sign. So we would insert percentage 2b, the WAF would decode it into its original form, which is the plus sign, right? But now we know a way to inject a plus sign, but now we need to figure out some other ways for doing string concatenation. So if you recall from this chart, we have tried this basic string concatenation. We also have this another way of executing of concatenating a string, which is dot source property. So let's go ahead and try the source property, right? Dot source right. So I need to remove white space because it's also stripping white space as well. So now we have completely injected this vector. There's one last thing we have to do. Now we need a way to set this name property. So let's first do it by hand. We inside the Chrome browser. So we will use Chrome JavaScript console and set the name property to JavaScript alert, right? So yeah, I made a mistake. Location. Right, so let's try setting the name property. I have to look at the vector again. So we have svg onload this followed by location. Alright, so percentage 2b and our source, right? Right, so LOCATION, which forms location, however we'll have to change the constructor from this to top. So now we are able to execute the JavaScript, and we can simply use a lot of methods in order to set a name property. So one of them being the target attribute of anchor tag, and another one is when we can load a website into an iframe. So here we cannot load the website inside an iframe because it's using xframe options. We can set the name property to JavaScript alert, and again we can also use window.open, and there are a lot of ways to solve this particular challenge, and which have been contributed by the community. So there were some partial solutions as well. So the object data tag was not being filtered out. We can also use this. However, the problem was that when we use the object data tag, the JavaScript would the SW file, the JavaScript would not actually execute under the context of the hack me or the challenge, which makes the script completely pointless due to the fact I have termed this as partial bypass, right? So there were many researchers that came up with partial bypass, and this was the expected solution. So we used window.open function and bodied onload and this constructor, and the second followed by JavaScript alert, which would set the name property, right? So if you look at solutions, there have been a lot of solutions by simply using the name property, and we have found amazing ways of setting name property, and we have also found many of constructors such as parent.node. This was a crazy solution from France Frozen that uses the same technique, and we have this constructor parent.node, which is effectively equivalent to the top, which we can use to access the location and other objects. So this was a real world XSS filter. We will now get to the third methodology, which is browser-based bugs. So browser-based bugs are one of the last options if the first two options fail. So just like there are application firewalls that apply very, very strict rules that even if you are able to reverse engineer the regular expressions, you are not able to execute the JavaScript, right? In that case, most effective ones are browser-based bugs, and they do not only bypass. They are not only effective against server-side security issues, however, server-side defenses. However, they are also effective against client-side filters as well, right? And browser bugs mostly exist in form of parsing bugs, charset bugs, and there are ways that we abuse client-side XSS filters in order to execute JavaScript. So let's talk about one of the first browser-based bugs that I found with Mod Security. So Mod Security had very strict rules when it when it comes to regular expression reversing. So I was not able to bypass it by using regular expression reversing. However, I figured out this was back in 2013 or 14 that Mod Security was not filtering out null bytes. So Internet Explorer up till version 9 ignores null bytes everywhere, and there are many application firewalls that are still vulnerable to this attack vector. So this particular specific XSS vector would not be detected by null byte in Internet Explorer. It would simply execute the JavaScript. Then we have Unicode separators, and this was one of the regular expressions that mod security was using. So what this regular expression does is it is simply checking anything followed by on keyword. So as per the specs, all event handlers must begin with on. So what this regex is doing is filtering anything that comes after on followed by a white space and equal to sign. So white space, for white space they are using /s meta character that matches all the white space, right? So people cannot use new lines and other characters to bypass it. However, the problem with /s meta character is that it does not cover all possible control characters. So this one was bypass for more security. So I used on mouse over event handler, so followed by %OB. So what is %OB? There are characters which are not covered by /s meta character, which are treated by browsers as a white space character, and if you are able to inject one of these characters that are not part of this group, you are basically able to bypass the web application firewall, right? So we can let's just briefly look at how this vector works, how this regular expression works. So, and again, this I is simply used for matching uppercases. So I mean, this is not really needed in this case. So SVG, on load. Right now it hasn't matched this payload. However, as soon as I input equal to sign, as you can see that it has matched. And not only for onload, you can input an invalid event handler, and as soon as you hit equal to sign, the regular expression would match. Now the problem with this regular expression is here. So we can input %OB and other characters that we'll take a look at in next slide in order to bypass or circumvent this filter, right? So thanks to Masato Kinogawa, we have a list of all control characters that are treated by browsers as white space. We have for Internet Explorer, for Chrome, for Safari, for Firefox, Opera, and also for Android browsers. So the hard work has already been done for you. Char set inheritance bug, and these are one of the most common and one of the first bugs I encountered for char set inheritance was when ZD Research had released a challenge, and it was solved by Masato Kinogawa, where he utilized a char set inheritance vulnerability inside of a Firefox in order to inherit a char set and completely represent the payload into a different form in order to execute JavaScript. So what a char set is, there are multiple encoding systems for web, and of course this is due to the fact that the communication done follows some rules. And what char set is it's a set of characters that are allowed for a specific encoding system, right? So encoding is done for following rules, for the communication to follow some rules, and the set of characters allowed for a specific encoding is known as char set. And currently UTF-8 contains largest set of characters, and therefore it is widely used. And in a char set inheritance vulnerability, occurs when an origin say example.com inherits a char set from another origin, say evil.com. And this is one of the most famous bugs when it comes to char set inheritance. So this is Google accesses at accounts.google.com, for which Masato Kinogawa was awarded $7,500, which exceeded the normal amount at that time, which happened to be $5,000, right? So Masato Kinogawa realized that there is this OE parameter that is passed via GET request, which can be used to change the char set, right? So he set that char set to UTF-32, Now, since the input was being reflected inside HTML context, he had to figure out opening bracket, closing bracket equivalent for in UTF-32, right? And of course, this was not an easy job. This is not as easy as it looks, right? Now, this was the vector that was sent by Masato Kinogawa in order to execute JavaScript, and this is completely represented in UTF-32. And Internet Explorer does not support UTF-32 charset, right? And again, we also know that from the past, we also know that Internet Explorer ignores null byte characters everywhere up till version 9. And in UTF-32, a single character is equal to 4 bytes, not 32 bytes, right? Sorry for that. We have so let's see how this XSS vector really works. So U2200, Unicode equivalent, is equal to this character, which is equal to double quotes, and this particular character U3E00 is equivalent to 3E is closing bracket, and 3C is opening bracket, right? Now, as I said, that each character in UTF-32 is equal to 4 bytes, right? So if we dissect U2200, we will see that we have a null byte over here, we have a null byte over here, and we have a null byte over here. And as we know that Internet Explorer ignores null bytes everywhere, so this means that in the end we have 0x22 left, which is double quotes, 3E, which is closing bracket, and 3C, which is opening bracket. So this is how this attack really works. So the conclusion is that blacklisting is not an effective solution. Blacklisting will only buy you some time. However, it will not prevent attacks, right? Secure coding practices such as input validation, source code analysis, and penetration testing should be followed rather than relying upon web application firewall, because firewalls are secondary line of defense. I mean, they are not primary line of defense. They cannot be relied. Input validation and source secure coding practices is what you should be focusing on. And of course, secure coding practices and all these SDLC recommends that everything should be done before the application has reached its before the development phase, right from the planning phase. So it saves cost, it saves resources, and it saves money, right? And lesson is that we have to try many permutations and combinations before getting to a bypass. So there are WAFs that I have encountered, and it's not like what we do in movies, that you just go and what the vector is, and you simply start typing and you get a bypass, right? It is not like it's done in movies. Sometimes our application firewall may take more than a week to bypass until I find a right browser bug, or until I'm completely able to reverse engineer all the rules, right? And then find what's not blocked, and based upon that I will construct a bypass. So thank you all. I hope this has been a fruitful session for you, and of course, if you have any further questions, feel free to ask.
Welcome back, guys. I hope we were able to deliver our webcast up to your expectation. I would suggest you to ask all your questions related to the webcast on answers.garage4hackers.com, which is another initiative of Garage4Hackers. It is a portal for open discussion and sharing of ideas. If you have questions about your security audit, problems understanding a malware, or vulnerability which you aren't able to understand, or any type of security related problems, put it on the board for discussion. Also, if you are a newbie wanting to be a security professional or a security researcher, our portal can help you provide with an open discussion platform to seek solutions specific to problems arising in your research. Also, you can tweet your questions with the hashtag G4H Webcast. As I have mentioned earlier about the CTF challenge, our CTF app is live now. So the knowledge which you have gained so far will be helpful in bypassing the CTF app protection mechanism. But then you have to follow some of our rules. Garage4Hacker really appreciate the efforts and hard work put by file descriptor in developing the CTF app. Thank you FD for your contribution towards our mission. I would like to thank a couple of people. Thanks to Rafay for such an awesome presentation. I have learned a lot of things and I'm going to apply all these techniques in my day-to-day pentest activities. Thanks to Imanshu for setting up the CTF server. Thanks to Secure Layer 7 for sponsoring us. Thanks to Ame, Codis, Chaitanya, Amol, and the entire Garage4Hackers family for making this webcast happen. Most importantly, thanks to all our viewers for watching our webcast. Don't forget to register yourself on our forum, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel to get all the updates. All the best with the CTF challenge. This is Imdad from Garage4Hackers signing off.